Hey there, Denis Faye here on behalf of Move Nutrition. And today we're going to talk to Dr. Emily Fritz. Now, I'm pretty excited about this conversation because Emily and I go way, way back. And she is really, she's one of the smartest people I know when it comes to nutrition and sports. And, we like to talk about this stuff a lot. But let me tell you a little bit about her before I start asking her questions and even let her talk. Emily has an MS and a PhD from South Dakota State University in exercise, nutrition, and food science, with a focus on the impact of eating behaviors and energy restriction in endurance exercise performance in females. She is ACSM certified. She is an ACSM certified exercise physiologist. She was the assistant professor of exercise science and nutrition at Simpson College. She's the former vice president of scientific affairs at Beachbody. That's where we met. And she currently runs a successful scientific consultancy called Empowered Science. And when she's not doing all that, she was a former college track and field All-American in the heptathlon. I think you can take probiotics for heptathlon, but that's a prebiotic, no, antibiotics for that, but that's okay. She was the Division III NCAA national at the Division III NCAA national championships. I chewed up your little
No,
exercise,
that's okay.
but we've run
You know
together
what's
near that.
fantastic? I think everybody should have somebody introduce them like that because now I'm ready for the day. I've never felt so good about myself.
I
So
can
I'm
just
geared up,
record
ready
that.
to talk.
You can show up at cocktail parties with that.
Yeah, please, as I enter the room.
Yes. All right. So I have some questions for you because I know that you're going to give me really good answers. Are you ready?
Yeah, I am ready for you.
All right, here we go. Okay. What do you see changing in the world of sports nutrition over the next couple of years?
I think the biggest thing on the horizon that hasn't really worked out in everyday nutrition is this idea of precision nutrition. And so, like, sports nutrition is probably going to be the first place where precision nutrition really makes a difference based on your desired type of exercise, your fitness goals. Precision nutrition, I think, is where it's at. And there's going to be corresponding tools to support people getting their particular needs in regard to their fitness goals. So that's probably the place where I see sports nutrition going at a faster rate than nutrition in general.
Yeah. Do you think,
For
I mean,
sure.
that's a great point. Like because athletes and people are really active, they're really on that sort of razor's edge. They're very reactive to the nutrition they take in. So they can see those personalized nutrition becomes all that more powerful because they see it working. Is that a good way of looking at it?
Yeah, and also the science, right? So
Okay.
like there is an abundance of science looking at like the impact of a certain type of nutrient or a certain type of diet on performance,
Mhm.
right? And so like there's a much stronger association between changing this thing and getting what you want than when we look at general health and well-being as a whole.
All right. Well, I mean, that bodes well for RDs and people in that profession because you need a person to do personalized nutrition, right?
Yeah, and I think the cool part is when you look at like sports performance and college athletes is where it's really taking off is many like 10 years ago when I came out of grad school, very few certified sports dietitians serving college athletes like hired by universities, and now it is a thing. So like there are these positions at a wide range of institutions. Student athletes are being provided with individualized support and counseling on their dietary needs. And so I think like that's a high level of athlete, but I think more and more if you look at athletes like myself, like you, Denis, who are aspiring even as they get older, we're more informed. We will read, we will go talk to people, we will adjust based on our needs. And I think that people who are athletes or consider themselves to be athletes are the ones that are doing that research, doing that work to figure out what they need to achieve their health and fitness goals. So yeah, I think there's greater traction on precision nutrition in
Okay.
a sports performance space.
And do you see artificial intelligence playing a role in all this?
I think artificial intelligence is going to play a role in everything
Well, yes.
eventually. Yeah,
So
right.
specifically how?
I would say you're making information more accessible, right? So like before, to get all of the information that you needed about achieving a certain performance or health goal, you would have to make an appointment with a dietitian. Maybe insurance doesn't cover it, maybe it does, maybe like now you can get more information much more easily. And I think it's going to accelerate qualified professionals' ability to provide individualized information, right? I think that's the gap we're missing right now. But I think there will be more solutions, applications, diet planning. It will become more accessible because there will be a certified professional who's able to turn out more product in terms of a specific recommendation for an athlete, whether they're high performance or a weekend warrior or recreationally active. I think it's about bandwidth and churning out good information. That'll become a lot easier through the use of AI. I think that applies to dietary supplement development and planning too.
Mhm.
So I think that there's a lot of different opportunities that will be accelerated with the use of computational science and AI, machine learning.
So really, it sounds like, unlike some professions, writers, um, who are really feeling threatened by this technology. If you're a sports nutrition professional, it's really one to embrace because it can make you do more. Is that what you?
Yeah, I mean, I think there are a lot of industries where like the bandwidth is limited and access to professionals is limited. And so I look at it as being able to serve more people more quickly and in a precise way, right? That's been the challenge for so long, is like we make these large blanketed recommendations for strength and power athletes and endurance athletes, but I think then you're able to layer in all of the nuance of like what a strength and power athlete at age 22 needs versus the strength and power athlete at age 42, because those are distinctly different physiologically.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, we have a whole list of questions here, but this is interesting.
It's a
It
really
happens whenever
interesting
we talk.
conversation.
I guess also in my mind, an important aspect of sports nutrition is the individual looking at themselves. You can use the science, and the science is fantastic, but ultimately it's how your body reacts. So how does that
I
work?
I think you do a great job in the content that you create of kind of acknowledging that upfront.
Mhm.
You have to figure out what works for you, and that's certainly the recommendation. But when I think about that concept, is figure out what works for you, you take a lot of time trying a lot of different things,
Yeah.
right? But if we can narrow that target of what your nutritional needs are to start based on your demographic characteristics, age, health and fitness goals. Do you want to lose weight? Do you want to gain muscle mass? Do you want to run faster? Do you want to run slower for longer? Right? Like there are all these different nutritional needs and fueling recommendations that apply to those specific situations. If you're a person who knows what the science is and the general recommendations are, then you have an easier time dialing it in. If you don't know, trying things out from the start in this really broad area is time consuming. If you could dial in the recommendations to these 5 things to try instead of these 25 things to try, you can make progress much more quickly, right? So it's more about culling things down to a smaller group of recommendations that are most important to your health and fitness goals.
All right, nice. I love that. You hear that a lot in interviews nowadays, by the way. I love that, but I
I love it.
love what you just
I
said.
mean, this is like a fascinating conversation. We could talk for an hour on that topic because I think it's the direction that AI is the power that precision nutrition will need to really dial in.
Maybe Move
nutritional
Nutrition will let us do a part 2. But let's move
I
on
would
with this
love to.
because we got a
Yep.
couple more questions here.
Yeah.
Which nutrients do you see people focusing on, and which should they be focusing on?
So I'm a big proponent, and you know this, Denise, some of my more current work has been really focused on protein. So I'm a huge believer in people focusing on adequate protein intake for whatever their fitness goals are. And generally, it's more protein than you think you need. We hear a lot about how everybody's getting enough protein, but the second you're physically active, you need more protein. So that's a nutrient that I think consumers are becoming savvy. They're starting to look for protein on labels. They're starting to understand that they need more protein. So I think consumers are getting there. But I think the biggest gap I see is very few people understand protein quality and protein digestibility. So that's kind of the next frontier of how we need to think about protein. And the easiest way to think about it, you're a vegetarian, this plant-based versus animal-based protein, and the digestibility, the accessibility, bioavailability of amino acids from those two sources of protein looks a little bit different. So then, do you need more protein? Do you need that protein to be in a more digestible and absorbable form if you're eating a plant-based diet? I think those are things that are really important for people to think about as they think about protein. Then there are all of these other nutrients that are really important. I am a huge believer in vitamin D and omega-3 fatty acids for most people, both from an inflammatory cardiovascular health and bone health perspective, and immune health perspective. So those are kind of my tops: protein, omega-3. And one thing that my academic advisor during my graduate degree said is the other two things he swears by are caffeine.
Caffeine.
So, and protein was on his list. Two things that never fail: protein and caffeine, from a sports performance perspective.
The enes.
The enes. I'm also jazzed about another ene, creatine.
Creatine, beta-alanine, is that?
Creatine, however people say it. There's a lot of really interesting health longevity benefits out of creatine above and beyond muscle performance. So that's another one I'm jazzed about that I think more people should consider using.
Yep, you got me using it. I know,
Great.
a bunch of people have me using it. It's just the science is kind
Yeah,
of
it's good
overwhelming
science.
a little bit.
Good science.
There's my new favorite term, which you taught me, and bringing this into the context of the food matrix, or a food matrix. Can you tell everyone what that is and why it's important?
Yeah, there's been some, so first and foremost, most people in the nutrition field will tell you that whole food matters, right? So getting lots of fruits and vegetables, lean sources of protein in your meals is a great thing that you should be focused on, regardless of whether that's sports nutrition or just overall health and well-being. Now, when you eat a whole meal, a lot of different nutrients are combined together.
Mm-hmm.
And that's good for absorption and bioavailability of some nutrients, right? Like we talk about vitamin C and iron being helpful, right, for absorbing the iron. But when we think about it in the context of protein, some of those other foodstuffs get in the way of you fully digesting and absorbing protein. There was a study recently published out of Maastricht University, Luc Van Loon's lab, and it looked at older adults who ate an omnivorous meal, and they matched for protein and total calories and compared that to a plant-based meal. So about 36 grams of protein in each one of these meals, and then they had the individuals consume the meals. People that participated in the study were their own control. So they came back to the lab twice. And what they saw is that plant-based meal barely increased amino acids. So that means that the protein from that plant-based meal was not well absorbed and utilized by these older adults. And so when we think about it that way, there's a lot of stuff in plant-based sources of whole food protein that gets in the way. There are things called anti-nutritional factors. There are inhibitors of digestive enzymes that make it more difficult for you to digest and absorb protein. And then you have fiber and other nutrients that slow down the absorption.
Yep.
And so it really, thinking about if you're on a plant-based, completely plant-based diet and you're really focused on resistance training, building muscle mass, then getting a supplemental source of plant-based protein might be a pretty important addition.
Or if you're aging, right?
And if you're aging, oh man, it's a double whammy because you have the digestibility of whatever you're eating, whether it's in a matrix or it's in an isolate, there's protein digestibility considerations. But then once you start to age, you have fewer digestive enzymes, the pH of your stomach slowly increases, and then you just have more difficulty with digesting and absorbing that protein. So the digestion piece gets dialed back, which compounds this problem that we're seeing with food matrices.
All right. One more question.
Yeah.
I'm lucky because given what I do, I get to talk to incredibly smart, knowledgeable people like you, doctors and what have you. Not everyone gets to do that. So what are your favorite resources for learning about this stuff?
That is great. I think, well, first, shout out to you. Anything that you write seems to be really well-informed and accessible and easy to understand.
This is your moment, Emily. Let's
No,
you.
but honestly, I really shout out to
Thank you.
Your stuff is really good and enjoyable to read, which is not status quo for nutritional science. There are, I mean, my go-to because of where I'm at is like PubMed.
Yep.
But I will be honest, when you're needing to look through a lot of information quickly, I have started utilizing sources of AI. You can load articles in and just say, give me a brief summary of this article in a way that someone of your level can understand, and it'll chop it down and give you key points from a specific article. I think that's the hard part. I wouldn't trust what you see from AI if you just ask a question.
Yeah, if you ask
but
for
if you,
studies with like ChatGPT, it makes up studies that don't exist.
right, but if you have the access to ChatGPT 4, you can load an actual article in there and say you search for the article on PubMed, you find it, you think this is interesting, I want to understand it better. You can have some of these AI resources help you break it down into more understandable terms just using that single reference, right? So that's a little trick that I suggest for people that are less well-versed in nutrition science to simplify things and make them a little bit more accessible, achievable. The American Dietetics Association has great information on their website. You can look at most universities that have strong nutrition programs will have information and guidance for consumers on their website. And then the dietary recommendations, although I don't agree with all of them, the dietary guidelines and the information, those experts that pull that dietary guidelines information together are far and away the nation's leading experts. So using some of those resources to find recommendations is really great. So I think there are a lot of different ways that you can gather and learn about nutrition. And then yeah.
Go ahead.
No, please, Eva.
I was just going to say sometimes I will go to the mass media and find stuff, but I will consider it a door, not a room, and make sure to go to the source of whatever that mass.
I think that's great.
Yeah.
I think that's a great recommendation too.
All right, cool. All right. Well, those were a bunch of questions, and those are some amazing answers. So I really appreciate you taking the time to talk and
Yeah.
be smart in front of.
Thanks for having me.
My pleasure.
And keep up the great work.
Yeah, I'll talk to you soon.